In Japanese history in the past, it tells the story of two of the strongest ninja clans from different villages, namely the Iga clan from Tsubagakure village and the Kuga clan from Manjidani village. These two clans have a dark history because they killed each other for 400 years. After being hostile for so long, a shinobi legend named Hanzo Hattori, the first generation, managed to reconcile the two ninja assassin clans. This peace is marked by an oath of agreement symbolized by a stone inscription placed on the border between the two villages. These two villages are hidden villages in the mountains and inland forests called the Hidden Village. Since their inception, the residents of the two clan villages have been educated to become ninjas who aim to become weapons for the empire. Here we will see a shinobi named Genosuk sitting on the edge of a river near a waterfall. Genosuk is the grandson of the leader of the Kuga clan from Manjidani village with a special ability that he has, namely the jutsu dojitsu, namely the power of the eye that can slow down anything around him. Suddenly a girl came down in front of him, making him fascinated by her beauty. This girl was named Oboro, who was surprised because there was a young man looking at her. Oboro was a kunoichi from the Iga clan from Tsubagakure village. This was the beginning of their meeting before becoming a couple. Both of them had a forbidden relationship because they came from different clans, even though their clans had made peace, but it was strictly forbidden because their clans still considered each other enemies. For this reason, Genosuk has a strong dream to unite the village by intending to marry Oboro because both have important positions, namely both grandchildren of the clan leader and future leaders for their village. Until one day Genosuk proposed to Oboro by giving a comb inherited from his mother. Oboro's gaze immediately turned towards the eagle that witnessed their engagement. Moving to the Sumpun Inamura Palace, where the empire of the Tokugawa Ieyasu shogunate, representatives from both clans are attending an honorary invitation to demonstrate the jutsu abilities of their respective villages witnessed by a legendary samurai warrior named Yagyu Munenori and also high-ranking palace officials. This performance was led by the third-generation Hattori Hanzo, who held the title of leader for the shinobi and as a shogun's guard under the Tokugawa Empire. From Kuga, it was led directly by the clan leader who was also Genosuk's grandfather, and from Iga, it was led by their leader who was also Oboro's grandmother. The first performance from the Kuga clan named Kushiro by fighting the palace soldiers. Kushiro has weapons technique skills and is able to throw dozens of kunai accurately without injuring the soldiers. Kushiro's ability in the best weapon technique in his village was proven without difficulty to defeat the palace troops quickly. The second performance of the Iga clan itself was represented by one of their strongest shinobi named Yashimaru. His jutsu technique was able to lengthen the rebonded armpit hair and was able to trap or cut his opponent to death. When he was about to kill a soldier with his jutsu, one of the officials shouted to stop the fight. Seeing the terrible jutsu of the ninja, Shogun Ieyasu and a tenkai or a palace monk could only watch it silently from the palace window. That night after watching the show, Hanzo Hattori was in a room to hand over a scroll of maps to Tenkai, the palace advisor, indicating something mysterious. After that, Hattori went out of the room to meet both clan leaders to convey a message from the shogun that the shogun was impressed with the show this afternoon. But the show was not over because he saw the enthusiasm of both clans who were equally thirsty for battle. The shogun held a match for the two clans, but this match was very terrible because both villages had to write the 5 names of the strongest ninja from their clans to kill each other. The winning village would determine who the heir would be to continue the position of shogun in the palace. If the Iga clan wins, the first son will become the shogun, and if the Kuga wins, the second son will become the leader. This match is really bad for a life-threatening match. In order to kill each other, the peace agreement from hundreds of years ago will be removed and the match will begin 2 days later after the agreement is removed. The representatives returned to their respective villages to announce the 5 names that had been written to participate in this life or death match. Ogen from the Iga clan mentioned 5 names one by one with the greatest abilities in the village until finally the last name mentioned was Oboro, who was also made the leader of the group. While from Kuga the old man began to mention their names one by one who had the best jutsu. Until the last name mentioned was Genesuk. This was clearly impossible because Genesuk had the determination to unite the 2 clans and did not accept the stupid match made by the palace rulers. The shinobi had argued because the ninja path was created to fight each other, without it the meaning of the ninja assassin would be destroyed. Elsewhere the village elder bequeathed the necklace to Oboro and asked him to continue the leadership of the Iga clan to his grandson. After they handed over their positions as village leaders, finally the last task was for the 2 clan leaders to meet in the forest on the border of the village to fight until both were dead. That night when Genesuk returned to the village he saw his grandfather who was dead. Sad and angry he explained that his grandfather's death was caused by a feudal battle in order to follow the royal game. So Genesuk invited his 4 group members to the palace in Sumpu to meet Hanzo Hattori to ask for an explanation and stop this fight. Genesuk also invited the Oboro group through a letter to ask for peace for their village and the Oboro group agreed. Unfortunately, Genesuk's desire for peace was opposed by Koshiro who actually liked this fight and had long wanted to channel his killing instinct. However, because Genesuk was now the leader of the clan they had to follow his orders. The next day they left their respective villages for the Sumpu palace. Unfortunately, some clan members also left not because they followed the orders of their respective leaders but because they wanted to fight each other. The Kuga clan who had left first stopped for a moment in the middle of the forest and watched the surrounding conditions through Yoma's ability, a blind person. Yoma has the ability to predict the surrounding conditions and said that 2 people from the Iga clan were approaching them and were preparing to attack. Enki, a man who has the instincts of a wild animal from the Iga clan, suddenly attacked which made them scatter. Enki prepared to attack Kisaragi Seimin with a brutal attack but missed several times because Kisaragi was able to avoid it with the shadow jutsu. Kajiro also appeared in the middle of their fight which made Enki forget about Kisaragi. The beautiful Kajiro showed her sexiness making this animal man gape for a moment thinking while there was a good opportunity. Enki enthusiastically jumped towards Kajiro and kissed her. Unbeknownst to him, Kajiro was a user of the poison jutsu that was released through his mouth. It was clear that Enki died in a terrible state. In another fight, Koshiro fought Yashimaru. Koshiro, who was an expert in weapons, was overwhelmed by the armpit hair that attacked brutally. Until finally Koshiro got the chance to throw a chain knife that tied Yashimaru to a tree and had to die with the knife stuck in his heart. After that Kisaragi Seimin appeared to imitate the physical form of Yashimaru so that he could disguise himself and infiltrate the enemy clan so that it would be easier to finish them off from within. Meanwhile Hayoma asked permission from Genesuk to go first and look for the remaining enemies in the forest. After defeating him, Kamaru and Enki Kushiro along with Kajiro came to Genesuk and asked why he was not involved in the fight. Genesuk explained that from the start he would not join the fight, which was unknowingly watched by a ninja from behind the trees assigned by the palace. Meanwhile in the palace, Hanzo was planning a strategy to destroy the Manjidani and Subagakure villages. Because they felt that if these 2 villages remained, it would be very dangerous and potentially damage the peace and stability of the country because of the terrible jutsu abilities they had. And this is the real reason this fight was made, so that the best ninjas were not in the village on the day of the extermination. Meanwhile, the 3 remaining members of the IGA clan were near a small river. They were sitting and waiting for the right time to move. Oboro looks worried about Hatarubi because since childhood he has considered this young girl like his sister. Suddenly the appearance of Yoma, who took advantage of the situation, immediately stabbed Tenzen from behind, who was carving a small piece of wood, making him collapse helplessly. After that he walked towards the 2 girls, but Hatarubi's butterfly jutsu began to interfere and the situation turned around, where Yoma was stabbed from behind by Tenzen, who turned out to be his special jutsu was the regeneration jutsu with worms living in his body. Yoma died on the spot, witnessed by Genesuk, who had just arrived and could only stay silent while looking at Oboro, as if they both realized they were destined to kill each other. When Tenzen prepared to attack quickly, Kajiro came and ran away, taking Genesuk to a safe place, and suddenly Kajiro hugged Genesuk's body and questioned why Genesuk chose not to fight in order to love a woman from the enemy side. That it turned out that all this time Kajiro loved Genesuk by expressing the feelings he had been holding back. When Kajiro wanted to kiss Genesuk, she realized that it would make the person she loved die, so she would not be able to get Genesuk for the rest of her life. The next day the Iga clan continued their journey to Sumpu Palace, where they had not realized that there was an enemy disguised as their friend. While in the middle of their journey they were stopped by Koshiro, who threw unlimited weapons at them. They immediately fled to save themselves in a small alley to take shelter. While they were hiding, this was Seiman, who disguised himself as Yashimaru, tried to stab Oboro with a sword, but Hatarubi quickly parried the sword, which injured his hand. Tenzen, who realized he was the enemy, immediately slashed Seiman to death. Koshiro, who knew his friend had been killed, made the attack even more brutal by continuing to throw kunai from the top of the tower. Tenzen quickly took out a weapon and threw it towards the tower, causing the building to collapse, causing Koshiro to fall and be injured after being hit by Tenzen's discus weapon. When Hatarubi healed his wounds, Oboro approached to check his condition, but Koshiro, who was still not dead, threw his weapon back at Oboro, who was off guard, and immediately ran away. Hatarubi used his body as a shield to save Oboro's life. Unfortunately, Hatarubi could not be saved and had to die in Oboro's arm. Koshiro, who was injured, did not spur the horse well, so that Oboro managed to catch up and finally. The ability of this jutsu is to damage the entire organ system in destroying blood vessels and crushing bones. Koshiro fell down feeling excruciating pain with blood coming out of his entire body. So for the first time Oboro had to become a killer and finish him off without mercy. The remaining of the Kuga clan are only Genesuk and Kajiro, who are on their way to find a wooden statue of Tenzen. This statue contains a message to meet him personally at a temple. So Genesuk immediately went to the temple to meet him by telling Kajiro not to interfere in his fight. Tenzen's goal is to reveal the history of Shinobi to Genesuk because he has lived for 300 years, so he is bored and wants to die. Tenzen has lived in an era of war until the peace treaty and realized that being a shinobi ninja is no longer needed. Also, he is looking for a way to die at the hands of the enemy because so far no one has been able to make him die honorably in a fight between ninjas. Tenzen also admitted that he was the one who gave the secret map to the palace so that he could find the hidden village to be destroyed. While Genesuk was too late to go home because the samurai and palace soldiers had begun to move to destroy their village, and suddenly Tenzen's weapon was suddenly thrown back through his body. Even though he was seriously injured, Tenzen could regenerate and heal the wound with the help of his medical worms. Not interested in continuing the fight, Genesuk just left him. Seeing this opportunity, Kajiro intended to finish him off but was easily avoided by Tenzen. Kajiro was helpless against a ninja who had lived for hundreds of years. Tenzen realized that Kajiro contained deadly poison. Then a new idea came up so that he could die by trying to taste Kajiro's lips to feel the last pleasure and suck the poison like a Cuban cigar. Kajiro's poison managed to kill the worms in Tenzen's body and he got what he wanted, which was to die honorably in battle. Genosuke, who returned upstairs because he heard the commotion, found Kajiro, who was dying, leaving a beautiful smile before falling and dying. The palace ninjas who had been watching immediately appeared to finish off Genosuke. Realizing this, he did not hesitate to use a jutsu to slaughter them all. Now Genosuke is alone and feels hopeless to achieve his dream of uniting the two villages. So the last mission is to meet Oboro to do a life and death fight because both have deadly jutsu. Oboro began to activate his terrible technique, but in his heart refused to hurt the person he still loves. With a sad feeling, Oboro finally took out a knife ready to stab. While closing his eyes he ran closer, and with resignation Genosuke accepted the attack by the person he loved. For the last time Genosuke enjoyed the face of Oboro, who he loved so much, before finally dying happily. Oboro continued his journey to Sunpo Palace to meet Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu. He only asked for one thing, like Genosuke's hope that the two villages could unite and live in peace. Unfortunately, his request was rejected by Tokugawa on the grounds that the ninja from the hidden village were half demons who had terrible powers, considering that peace would not be realized. Oboro, who was rejected, raised his head and stared at Tokugawa as if he was going to cast a jutsu on him. But it turned out that Oboro actually destroyed both of his eyes as proof of his sincere desire to plead with the last sacrifice. Seeing this, Tokugawa felt sorry for taking such a reckless action. So the shogun immediately ordered to stop the attack and withdraw troops from both hidden villages. So with this decision, Oboro succeeded in realizing his lover's long-awaited dream. Time passed by, showing Oboro on the banks of the river, his favorite place with Genosuke. Now a peaceful life has been achieved and he is an ordinary citizen because the Shinobi era has been abolished at that time. And the film ends. The message of this film is that's how love has always been, the suffering never ends. Even though the suffering has disappeared, memories and memories of painful things can never be erased. So reality is more real than plans or just talking about reality. So never run away from reality, even though reality is bitter, because love is fate, whether it comes true or not, that's what destiny is. I am Fox and thanks for watching.